Hey everyone, Richard Metal Fan here, bringing you guys a brand new 2018 album review. And as you can see below the title, today we're going to be looking into the new album from the band All That Remains, entitled Victim of the New Disease, which was released through Fearless Records. Now, for those of you are pretty much everybody should probably know who All That Remains are if you're a fan of like metalcore, melodic metalcore and stuff. These guys have been around for a long ass time. Probably since they formed in '98 in Massachusetts. And All That Remains for me are one of those first bands, especially since like early in high school like that really just got me into like sort of like the early stages of me getting into metal. I remember first hearing This Calling back when I was like 15. I was like really hooked onto it, and I really like their older shit. Like I know their debut album Behind Silence and Solitude, which came out in 2002. That was kind of like more melodic death metal, but it wasn't until This Darkened Heart where they kind of switched up to more metalcore. And then 2006, The Fall of Ideals, which in my opinion is still their best work to date, and it was really good. Their next album, which hard to believe it came out 10 years ago, which would be Overcome, which I thought was a alright album, but doesn't really compare to the almighty The Fall of Ideals. For We Are Many, which came out in 2010, which I really thought was pretty good. I honestly thought that was like All That Remains at their peak, but it wasn't until like after this couple albums where they kind of went to shit, and I just didn't really bother with anything else after A War You Cannot Win, which their 2012 album, and the other two before that. And it wasn't until like early, like about a month or so ago, they released a new song, which was actually the opening track called "Fuck Love," and I was like, "Wow, All That Remains actually got heavy again." And I decided, all right, maybe I'll try to check this album out, but I'm not really getting high hopes up. And it was sadly before this album came out, about I think it was like a couple weeks before the album was released. Ollie Herbert, their lead guitar player, had sadly passed away in an accident in his home. From what I've heard, it was he pretty much drowned in like a lake or something, which was really just terrible considering. I mean, even though I said I didn't really care for All That Remains as much these days, I was like, it's really kind of sad because he was like a great guitar player, and he was like one of the original founding members, which it pretty much remained. It's pretty much his last album because I think he recorded the album but before he died, which is really a shame because he's a really talented dude. So rest in peace, Ollie, if you're watching this. No way, if you're not watching this, I don't know what the fuck I'm saying. But anyway, let's just talk about the album. Does this album live up to this? I honestly think, yeah, I think this is the best thing that All That Remains has done since probably The Fall of Ideals. I feel like All That Remains pretty much got their shit together and decided to go back to what they once were. We're just a straight up like heavy metalcore band. One thing to know about is the vocals from Phil Labonte, like just the screams that he does, like especially it just I don't know, and just like this his clean vocals are really shine well, and guitar wise Ollie Herbert's just his last bit of shredding on this album is just superb. The bass tone, you could definitely hear the bass pretty as wishes was be kind of a little bit audible. And the drumming from, I forget their drummer's name. He's just the drumming is just all over the place. So this, but yeah, without further ado, let's dive into this track by track. Now the album opens up with the first single, which really caught my attention, which is the song called "Fuck Love," which boom, right out of the gate, this opener is just guttural and a natural response release of some heavy as fuck feels that throws yourself right into your skin. Just rapid fire from the kick and the guitar, the sound of pillars hitting a metal wall, which eventually melt to the final release at the end. And I just really love the long scream that Phil Labonte does, like right near the end of the song. Yeah, it's a great way to start off this album. Just hit it off right with a bang. Next song on the album is called Everything's Wrong, which kind of brings out the somewhat softer side of All That Remains in the intro, and then the melody digs in with sort of like clean vocals that don't shade the bright light of reality. It has a really nice guitar solo from Ollie. Blood I Spill, which is a sludge to doom like song, sort of like deep growls in the dark that try to cover up the bright and clean vocals that are victorious and matching the intensity of sort of the screams on there. And I totally dig the presence of the awareness. Wasteland, which is an immediate pulse picker upper, it's just like six shreds from both Ollie and Mike. Mike, I believe now I remember the other guitar player. And the guitars that drop into like a harmonious hammer fall reminiscent of theatrical metal. This story has like all the makings of a bestseller, from the twists and turns it takes with tones, gurgles, and just the thunks on the bass. Um, Alone in the darkness, and an anvil drops from the top of like a cartoon drawn mountain, where I'm sort of like drawn in, and it lands right beside me without touching me. The vibrations, it's almost kind of like the ballad on here is like in a bottle, pops out like a genie, but I wish it wasn't just me. Hey, and sort of like the weight, the scales are side by side, balanced with like sort of like acoustic and electric guitars, and it's just a pretty good song. Misery in Me, which is big and boisterous hooks, grinded sort of like a dirty tone guitar solo. The percussion keeps up with the pace that is somewhat deceptive, but with evidence of the duality of the vocals. And the section that is on the outside, things might look on the level, but inside, those masked feelings are what are being screamed out as loud as like a damn inner child. And I really love the killer bass line from Aaron Patrick. It's just really great. Broken, which is a pit perfect track, which makes you want to go hard in the pit, and will get the crowd to stir up some mess or around a little. And the tempo versus the verse is waged on a battlefield, and it's just wow. Next song on here is called Just Tell Me Something, and this is sort of like, I just really like, there is like a change at the chorus in this, I swear. I almost kind of like bleh, after I played it the first time. It is just so good, and I just love the wave of the motion that literally moves your stomach or kind of weaken your knees. Yep, I think that's the one. And the vocals emphasize that shift we feel as the ground under us move or buckle our knees, and from sort of like cataclysmic shift or change of mind. But yeah, I meant what I said, which the guitars kind of like haunt and walk through the vocal lines on here. It's just like a fleck of dust in a bright light, and the tempo is strong, and the words are ordered like something like an invisible driving force. And I really dig like those builds, right? The choruses, and I just love sort of like the Phil's vocals on here. It's just a very commanding track. And then the album closes with the title track, Victim of the New Disease, which echoes of elements of kind of like something like the guitars kind of remind me a little bit of like Dimebag, but I feel like there's a mention that there's sort of like a thwank in like the rhythms that reminds me a little bit of that Texas metal vibe to it, but you know, the kind that makes you want to like do dance and stuff. And I just love the drums dig in all right places, and it's a good way to end this album. Now overall, Victim of the New Disease by All That Remains is a pretty good comeback, especially really just making up from those last few albums, and I feel like they just gotten right back to, I believe, what they once were. So yeah, that's my review of the new All That Remains, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about it, and I'll see you all in the next video, and keep it metal, and rest in peace, Ollie Herbert. We'll miss you.